as we're counting down to that big meeting in Muscat. It's not in Istanbul, it's in Muscat, and there was too much drama around that too. Proposed talks between the United States and Iran in Muscat mark a cautious diplomatic opening at a moment of sharp regional tension. The discussions are expected to focus primarily on Iran's nuclear program, with both sides signaling a desire to prevent further escalation while keeping expectations deliberately limited. Oman's role is central. Muscat has long functioned as a quiet intermediary between Washington and Tehran, hosting indirect negotiations in the past when direct contact was politically impossible. Now, yet again, Omani officials are expected to facilitate the talks, likely through a mediated or indirect format, reflecting the fragile state of relations and lingering mistrust. The talks come against a backdrop of heightened military and political strain, including recent incidents in the Gulf and continued disagreement over Iran's uranium enrichment levels and US sanctions. Washington has indicated openness to dialogue but has hinted at broader concerns beyond the nuclear file, while Tehran has insisted that any negotiations remain strictly limited to nuclear issues and sanctions relief. Now, for now, expectations are modest. Diplomats and analysts describe the Muscat meeting less as a breakthrough moment and more as an effort to stabilize communication channels, reduce miscalculation, and test whether incremental progress is possible after years of stalled diplomacy. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra with us, Brahma Chalani ji is also with us, and Dr. Wail Awad also with us. My namaste to everybody. Dr. Wail Awad, your thoughts first up. Are these talks going to bear any fruit? And what's the story behind this last moment shift from Turkey and Istanbul to Oman and Muscat? Because there was opposition to that too in the morning. You're on mute.
Sorry, thank you, Anand.
Yeah.
I think that Iranian wanted the talk to only focus on the nuclear issue, and they forced the nuclear issue on the table once again. But we all know that the Americans are putting a trap for the Iranian negotiators, as they have done the last meeting when they had the fifth round, the sixth round going to happen. Then the United States attacked with Israel, Iran, 12 days. So therefore, Iranian wanted to resume the talk in Muscat from where it stopped last year. So therefore, the American cannot dictate at this moment, though they are planning to put more on the table to discuss the Iranian ballistic missile technology, selling Iranian oil by dollars to the American, and also ending their proxies in the region. So, however, Iranians made it very clear that they will be flexible diplomatically, but they are ready for any surprises by the United States.
Ambassador Rajiv Dogra?
Well, firstly, the choice of Turkey represents exactly the very unthinking behavior of America. Turkey is a NATO member. Turkey has also threatened or talked to America about taking out the Kurdish population, not just in other areas where it has got used to bombing them, but also in parts of Iran. So how can Turkey be suggested as a place for negotiations with Iran by America? Oman, on the other hand, is really neutral and has a reputation for not being the interfering type in Gulf affairs, nor does it have any bone to pick with Iran. So Iran is okay as a venue for talks. But are these talks only for the purpose of talks? There have already been some, I wouldn't call it skirmish, but some out of ordinary news. One Iranian drone was shot down. Today there are reports that Iran has captured 2 oil tankers. So these are the kind of things which lead to bigger issues. And this is exactly what Donald Trump may want as his way out of going to the Congress. Because he does not want to start a war where he does not have the approval of the Congress. Iran, on the other hand, is now giving it pinpricks to see how far America can go. Iran knows that America is not surrounded by allies as had happened in earlier Gulf wars. In fact, France, Germany, and some of the others are disinterested in taking on Iran. They have their own separate channels with Iran. So it's not going to be an easy thing for Trump. Negotiations, I don't think, are going to lead to anything much, because Iran is not going to agree to denuclearizing or giving up the nuclear option, which it had once done. On the other hand, it would insist that America drops its sanctions first.
But in this case, the Americans are not willing to stop at the nuclear file. They want the ballistics control, and they want Iran to also stop selling oil to the Russians and, of course, open up their markets, etc. There are some other conditions too. Somewhere, Brahmaji, are we queuing up for another short, maybe disruption in the Gulf? A few days or maybe 1 or 2 weeks?
Well, it's a good question. Maybe there might be some preemptive US military strikes on Iran again, just the way we saw in June last year when Iranian nuclear sites were bombed. But Trump can take credit for forcing Iran to come to the negotiating table at gunpoint. This is what he has done literally, by massing forces around Iran. He has forced Iran, which is at its weakest moment since 1979, he has forced Iran to negotiate with the US. And in fact, just a week ago, Tehran was insisting that it will not negotiate with Washington while the US openly threatens a military attack on it. So, having forced Iran to the negotiating table, Trump is now seeking to impose maximalist demands on Iran. Those demands would basically disarm Iran and leave it very vulnerable to coercion or attack. For example, Iran does not have a modern air force, so it relies on ballistic missiles and drones.
Yeah.
Ballistic missiles are Iran's primary deterrent. Now, Trump is pressing Iran to accept limits on its missiles. In other words, he's trying to effectively strip Iran of its ability to retaliate, which will leave it exposed to coercion or attack. And the second thing is that he's now demanding, and this is the demand number one in the US demand list, which is that there should be a permanent end to all enrichment of uranium. And Iran should also give up all its current nuclear fissile material stockpiles. Now, look at the irony of it, because last June, when Trump bombed nuclear sites in Iran, he said publicly that those strikes had obliterated Iran's nuclear capability.
Yeah.
Now he's insisting on permanent ban on enrichment and Iran giving up its stockpile of fissile material, including enriched uranium. So if Iran's nuclear capability was truly eliminated, such demands would not be made today. So I think this is what we're seeing is a high-stakes game of chicken. Trump is betting that Iran's internal fragility and its weakness, external and internal, will compel Tehran to capitulate, while Iran is betting that its remaining leverage, and it has its remaining leverage is missiles and nuclear know-how. So Tehran is betting that leverage is the only thing standing between its regime and the faith that President Maduro.
The other thing is that can they do something as much as Venezuela with Iran, because Iran is far more self-destructive in nature. The Khamenei regime, IRGC have said that if you're going to try and unseat us, we will destroy everything that is Iran and in and around it. Strait of Hormuz, if they put out landmines there, how are the Americans going to even clear it while Abbas?
Well, I think that is the main objective of the United States, is to destroy the infrastructure of Iran, dismantle it, disintegrate it. And trust me, neither the American nor the Iranian nor anybody in the West Asia wanted to see a war except Israel. So therefore, the American knows that it is weighing the options of Netanyahu, putting the pressure, opening Epstein file, blackmailing Trump so he can go for a war. So therefore, let us be more realistic in terms of any catastrophe open in this region. What is the American objective and the Israelis' objective in Iran is in disintegrating Iran and breaking it, as they have done in Syria. The moment the Americans take the first attack and then destabilize the government, there will be a second attack by the Israelis, like they did in Syria, total destruction of the military capabilities in all fields. And therefore, disintegration of Iran is on. And imagine if, as you said exactly, Anand, if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, that means it will take you minimum 2 to 3 years to clear the mining, which means disruption of the global trade in oil, which India and Southeast Asia region will be the first sufferer from such kind of effects.
Will it be more India or more China, and will Trump want a certain amount of disruption because that will hurt the Chinese more, it will hurt the Chinese economy more? And is there perhaps a statement there? Is there a reason why there is an agreement to buy oil from US and from Venezuela and perhaps reroute some of the trading links from that region? Is there a buffer there, and perhaps the nation that's going to be hurt most is the Chinese? Somewhere who's spoiling for a conflict and disruption in this region? The Iranians, the Americans, or are there other entities in that Arab world who want Iran displaced off that mantle? We'll have to wait and watch how this pans out. We keep the very focused, very closely trained on what happens in Oman, in Muscat. For the moment, winding up this edition of The Right Stand. Thank you to all our guests. Thank you very much. Namaste.